computer. All right, we are here for the second day of oral finals, and we're excited and scared. Have you ever heard that song from Into the Woods? I'm excited and scared. I sing it a lot. We're so happy to have Lucy and Whitney, Lucy and Lincoln here, sorry. Whitney's also a first name, so I get messed up. And Erica, we're so thankful that you're here. She's going to help to evaluate, and she's also going to ask some questions. So usually, Erica, I will give you a little time. Sometimes I won't, but you're welcome to say, skip me for right now and come back to me. And what we're going to do is we're going to be giving you 15 minutes. Lucy, you've done this before, so you already know. We're going to give you 15 minutes. I'm going to start my timer so it's all ready to go when we're ready. And we will go ahead, timer. Okay. And ask you many of the questions that you probably have already heard from the written final, but you're going to find out that there probably will be some other questions to pull more information out of you and give you an experience to think on your feet. Remember, we talked about this earlier, that silence is okay. I just said the word that's okay to say too. And it's also okay to say, if you draw a blank, it's also okay to say, I'm drawing a blank right now. Give me a minute to collect my thoughts. And we'll give you a minute. And if you don't, even if it's 30 seconds, if you don't come up with something to say, then just start thinking of something else that comes to your mind and say, for some reason I'm drawing a blank with that, but what I really, really want to talk about is natural law and blah, 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 whatever it is that you have prepared to say. And that is called deferring. And that's a very good tool to use wherever you are, whenever you are, because it'll allow you to get away from the thing where you've got the mental block, talk about this, and then you can say, you know what, I just remembered what I wanted to say. And you can go back. Because sometimes when your brain can get away from what you're trying to think, it says my internet connection is unstable. Can you hear me now? I'm changing that next Wednesday, by the way. They're coming over and we're getting a different internet service. Hopefully that'll work. So this will give you a chance, the brain will get a chance to be able to think again. Do you remember how sometimes you can't remember what you're going to say and you say, okay, oh well, I'll remember another time. And then you start talking about something else and then you remember. That is actually a great tool to use. And if we can learn to use that early in life, we're able to come up with what we need to say. So we're going to check out the deferment. We're going to work on whether you can think on your feet. That means I'm asking you a question you haven't thought of really before and you haven't verbalized yet. And so you have to think about it right then and there. And sometimes you take the long way around the subject until you can spiral right into the middle and get right into the center of it. So that's okay to do too. The last one that we look at is if you speak succinctly or concisely. That's when you're clear and brief. And those are the things that you have written down, they're clear. And that doesn't happen with everything. So it's not real common. And it's a skill that you can learn. And some people are born with it. I'm hoping by the time I grow up that I'll be able to do it because I'm not there yet, but I'm working on it. But the more you read, the more you discuss, the more you think, the better it will be. So with that, it's 9:40. We should say a prayer, and I'm not sure if Jace is going to pop in or not. Remember that you're going to hear the ding when people pop in, but don't let that bother you. Is anybody feeling like it's a great desire to petition Heavenly Father? Oh, Jace is texting me right now. He's saying he texted this. Let me just tell him we're going to say, we are about to say a prayer. Coming on. Okay. I'm sure he's putting his tie on, so we'll wait for him for a minute. Do you have any questions? All right. Jace, oh, it's Lucy. Lucy, we went over all the logistics, and we're about ready to say a prayer. Okay, so Jace is going to be in about 5 minutes. So Lucy, you've probably been going back and forth going, I'm not first, now I'm first, now I'm not first, now you are first. So we'll go with Lucy first. Lucy, not Robbins, but Lucy Whitney. And Erica, how would you like to start us off? You okay with that? Yes, Lucy.
Did you want to do the prayer?
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes. Who is feeling like they can say the prayer?
I can, I guess.
Okay, I'd love that. And then you can petition the Lord for all the needs you need as well.
Okay. Dear Heavenly Father, we're grateful for this day, and we're grateful that we are able to come and hold oral finals, and we're grateful for Sister Greenman and Sister Olson and all of their effort and time that they put into teaching us. And please help us to be able to speak to the best of our ability, and to have our minds be clear and be able to understand what they're asking, and to be able to be clear in what we are saying. Please help us to feel calm and know that when we are done, that we did the best we could. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thanks so much. So we'll also have you stand up. Are you standing? It looks like you kind of are. Are you?
I was on a high chair, but I will just move that out of the way right now.
Awesome. Okay. And are you okay, Erica, to start off with questions today?
Of course. Lucy, I've loved reading all your writings over this semester, and I'm so impressed with the principles that you can pull from things. Really quick, Mom, have you started a timer? Okay. And I wanted to ask,
out of it today.
Of the readings from this past semester, what was one that you felt resonated with you most?
Well, I finished reading Frankenstein just a couple weeks ago, and I think that was the one that I enjoyed reading the most. I loved her eloquence in writing. Like, she just writes so well, and then the story is, I think it's really compelling and beautiful, and it's really thought-provoking. So.
Thank you. What principles from that reading would you want to share with the world in today's society?
Well, one of the main things, and one that we talked about a lot in class, was just creation and the ability to create, and how we handle that. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank.
No worries, you're doing great.
Yeah, and just, I guess, knowledge and creation and what we do with that, because I think our world is really focused on knowledge, and there's so many amazing new developments in technology that have come about. And I think Shelley just showed that we have to take responsibility for the things that we create and the things that we do with the amazing knowledge that we have. And so I guess that's the principle that I would share with the world. It's just understand that you take responsibility for the things that you do with your knowledge.
That's a great message. I love that.
Thank you. So thinking about that, Frankenstein, and thinking about the principle that you were talking about with the knowledge and with creation, and how would you apply what you know of natural law to that?
Well, natural law is, I guess, God's law for us. And he intends for us to create. He gave us the ability to create, and in order to become like him, we need to learn how to create responsibly, because he created us. And so I guess we just have to be in tune with the natural law of what God wants us to create, and be able to be in tune with his will and his desire to make sure that we fulfill the natural law without breaking it.
Wonderful. I want to ask you something that you probably have not thought about. As I was talking to somebody about Les Mis the other day, they were talking about the main theme in Les Mis for them was human rights. And they began to talk about Jean Valjean, who was so poor, he went to go get a loaf of bread and he stole it. And then he was in prison. And she talked about how Fantine was so poor and she had to have somebody take care of her child, and how neither one of them were given their human rights. And I had to ask them, is it a human right to steal? Is it a human right to expect somebody else to take care of your child? And what do you think about that? Because I feel like this is a really important subject for youth who are trying to figure out what a human right is. And we'll go further with that. But what do you think? Is it a human right that you can steal bread if you're poor, or that you can expect somebody else to take care of your children because you are poor?
Well, I usually tend to shy away from talking about rights and stuff, because I think it's so, there's so many different opinions today in this world about what your right is. I don't think it is a human right to steal or take something away from somebody else, because that takes away their human right to have their own possessions. And expecting someone else to take care of you or your children isn't a right that we have. It's more of it tends to lead more to an entitlement than an actual right, because we do have certain rights, but we also, along with those rights, we have responsibility to take care of ourselves and to do what we can to further ourselves.
Excellent. That's really good. Let's learn really quickly. In the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson tells us what the 3 human rights are. Basically, what are those?
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Exactly. So anything else is just an opportunity or an outcome, and those are not given to us, right? Okay, good. I think that's such an important subject in this postmodern world. And this is the next question. I want to go to that, because I feel like it's so important that we know we are living in a postmodern world where every word is almost changing with its definition, and human rights are being lifted way up above natural law.
Yeah.
And so how would you kind of describe what we're talking about? How would you apply postmodernism with what we're talking about? And maybe I said some of it already, but how would you put that into the equation here that we're talking about? If that makes sense. Any way that's coming to your mind.
Okay. So I suppose postmodernism applies to what the idea of a right is, or just our rights as a human. I think it applies because now in this time, it's becoming such an issue to be politically correct and to never hurt anyone else in any other way, like not to offend someone or not to discriminate against them because they are different than you or because they're a minority. But it's gone to the extent, because in this postmodern world, truth is relative. It kind of just keeps going further and further into so far as to mean that when you are upholding something that you believe in, or something that is part of who you are, that if that is something that is more in the majority, or even just a more common belief, that you are hurting other people's rights because they might have a different view that is not as common as yours, or just a little bit different.
Excellent. Wow. Well done. Great. I'll ask another question then, Erica, if you want to be prepared for after that. So let's go to Candide.
Okay.
Okay. And I wonder, what do you think Voltaire's contribution was to assist the zeitgeist, or the wave of the movement of society? How did he assist us into this postmodernism idea?
Well, his book is a satire on religion, I guess. So he's making fun of religion, and it seems that his view of religion isn't so much, at least it's not belief in God and following him. I think he takes it further into a blind following of God, that we just do whatever he says, but also that we put all of our trust in him, and that takes away our own responsibility to act for ourselves. He makes it seem like we just believe that because there's a God, everything will be okay, so we don't really need to take responsibility to improve something or make our lives better. And so, because he's making fun of religion, I guess in this postmodern time, we've kind of pulled away from religion and pulled away from God somewhat. And so I guess that was his contribution.
Awesome. Okay. Erica.
In Bastier's What is Seen and Not Seen, what principles could you pull from that? Because you talked about how in today's society, truth is relative to so many people. What principles could you pull from his writings to discern truth? A more absolute truth, perhaps something that people don't commonly see.
Give me a minute.
You're fine. Good job.
Well, I'm just going to babble for a minute and see what comes out of it.
That works.
I guess in this time where there are a lot of things, the things that are seen are more rights, or what they believe are rights for people, and less discrimination, or just less harm to those who are not as less harm to those who are in a minority. But some of the things that may not be seen as commonly are people not being able to say what they believe because they might be offending someone, or having the same negative effects that could come upon a minority be put upon the majority, just because the minority is kind of being more wanting, they're trying to give more support to the minority, so that the majority loses some of its value and is diminished.
That's fascinating you went there. I hadn't thought of that. So you're saying society is focusing more on the offended people, like the broken window, than the long-term effect of these actions taken.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
That's really neat.
Okay, you have a minute and a half, and I would like you to talk about the reading that has made the biggest impact on your character.
I'm going to go back to Frankenstein then. One of the things that I had a hard time with just understanding was Frankenstein, was his monster a victim, or was he a villain? Was he responsible for the choices that he made, or was he just helpless and he had no choice? And I guess throughout the book, I had different opinions, but as I went on, I think I came to see that he was completely responsible for his choice and his actions. And so I guess that just taught me more deeply the responsibility each of us have, and that we can't hardly ever blame somebody else for our actions. And just that we have to take responsibility.
Fantastic. Give her a hand. That's wonderful. By the way, Lucy Robbins, your final is not going to be like that. Lucy has been with us for a while, and so I don't want you to get nervous and leave. And Lincoln, you haven't been with me either. So, but that was amazing. You took on some things that we hadn't really talked about. We haven't talked about human rights. I want to this coming semester, because I feel like it's going to be essential that we can recognize the difference between what God's rights, the rights he's given humans, and the rights that humans are trying to usurp from others to destroy agency. So awesome, really awesome. Okay, I'm going to take a few minutes to do a little writing. Oh, something else that we did not do in the logistics meeting before this, if I could get all of you to go in on Canvas and open up the assignment for the oral final, I need you to submit that you have taken it, or that you're here, or whatever you want to say. Or you can say, I love this class, or I'm going to send Mrs. Greenman on a trip to Hawaii, whatever you want to say. If you can do that, then that way later on today, I can go ahead and work the rubrics and put in your evaluation. So this was awesome. I'm going to take just a couple minutes myself and write down a few messages or notes for this.
Okay, since I wrote some things during the oral, I just want to take a moment to say something that my husband told me the other day. He said, the feelings we feel for excitement and for being nervous are the same in our brain. Everything, all the patterns scientifically are the exact same. The only difference is if we decide to be nervous or excited. So we can choose to channel nervousness or excitement. The same thing is happening in our brain. And so I'm really excited for all of you because I have loved reading all that you've written. And so it's neat to see you make these connections on the spot. Lucy, we asked you some questions of things that you hadn't maybe thought of together in that way before or written about before, but you made the connections on the spot. And that's exciting. So great job.
Something I'm just writing down right now that I just need to pull up and point out to everybody. When you were actually bold enough, Lucy, to say, I'm drawing a blank, did you see how fast your brain filled with what it needed to say? It was like seconds. You were ready to say what you needed to say. And I want everybody to know that as soon as you can admit, this is like, okay, this is not like sin, but it is like sin. As soon as you are able to admit something like a mistake or a sin or that you've drawn a blank, I hate to put drawing a blank in the same category of sin because it's not, but it's admittance. As soon as we admit something, we are flooded with ways to get better. It's just amazing. So that's why it's really important to be able to say that, even in front of people. Awesome. Okay, I'm done. And we are ready to go. We'll go Jace, and then we'll go Lincoln. Go with Jace, and then we'll go with Lincoln. Let me just get this in order. Jace, is this your penultimate oral final with me?
Yeah, I think so.
Wow. And how long have you been with me? Like 7 years? 6? Has it been 5? Because I taught like 3 years before I started this 4-year thing. No, maybe it's been 5 years. I don't know. I can't remember. That is amazing. Okay, Jay.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's been awesome. And you look very smart and good, handsome. Okay, let me just set my timer. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go. All right, Jace. What do you want to talk about?
I don't know. I'm pretty excited to talk about stuff where I'm just asked a question. In general, I really liked all of the discussions that we had in class, and yeah, I would really like to go deeper in all of them. I especially like the books on economics, though, like Adam Smith and Bastiat with the Wealth of Nations and That Which Is Seen and That Which Is Not Seen. because economics is just one of my favorite subjects. So I'd like questions on that, I guess.
Let's go there then. I like being able to ask you those questions, because we learn best where we like the readings. Okay, so let's go. First of all, let's just go break the ice and say, what do you think? What are some of the principles that you learned that you had not really understood before? What was something new that you learned? Or maybe something went deeper for you?
I think one of the principles I learned this year specifically from like in The Wealth of Nations was Adam Smith talked a lot about the dangers of letting big businessmen or bankers go rampant with people. I didn't really understand what he meant by that before, especially because he's espousing this completely free market, laissez-faire, and I kind of advocated the same thing. So I didn't really get what that was talking about. But I guess as I've been studying more current world position and looking at the world through history, normally tyranny or interference in the economy isn't just this benign government saying, oh, these people are so rich and we need to spread the wealth. That's sometimes how it's presented up front. But what happens in actuality is a lot. One business gets special favors because this business can send lobbyists who can go and talk to the legislators 24/7 and give them nice lunches and things, and actually probably convince them that they're right, that their business needs this protection. It's not necessarily that the legislators agree to lie or anything. But and how he's talking about what's really the best thing to help make the playing field level and help the poor. And it's been shown through history, like the poor do best when you get violence and force out of the economy and you allow people to make free exchanges knowing that they can trust that their property is safe, and then those trades, each person benefits from them because they're trading something that they value less for something that they value more on both sides of it when it's voluntary. And so yeah, it's been shown that people prosper when they have this morality behind their system that doesn't make exceptions for people. I guess I saw deeper how what really helps true even equality of income and such is free market and the deeper connection between morality in general and free market economics.
So it sounds like you're kind of pulling in some ideas of the effects of postmodernism.
In what way?
When you're talking about morality.
Mm-hmm.
So how would you connect the effects of postmodernism with what's going on with what you're talking about? This tyranny, when one business gets special favors, and when people prosper because there is morality behind the decisions. How would you integrate the effects of postmodernism here?
I think a lot of people in our world, with how popular postmodernism has become, even if they don't necessarily word themselves as postmodernists, people are very much against any kind of hard and fast rule, even if that rule is like very helpful. So a lot of times people will say we need to try different approaches, or not just look at this one way, when and then go and repeating things that have been shown to fail over and over in the past, instead of following options that have been shown to be more successful in the past.
And is that the hard and fast rule? The ones that have been successful? Is that what you're talking about?
I'm talking about hard and fast rules about you do not infringe on somebody else's property, and or even in areas of personal life, like keep sexual relations until marriage. That people in our world today are very against hard and fast rules, and it gets to the point where people don't see the immediate consequences of breaking those rules, and they think that in this specific case it's going to make something better, but in the long run, it, like most of the problems that are in our world is because people have ignored these time-tested and established rules of morality that you can use. So when you're in the moment, you don't have to do this huge cost-benefit analysis. You've already done the analysis before, and you've made your decision that you're of what you will and won't do. And these decisions where power can corrupt, or you might feel more tempted to do one thing or the other.
Erica,
So
do you want to?
rules are actually a really good way to deal with society, and it doesn't mean that you're closed-minded because you follow these rules. It's because you're open-minded and you've looked at what happens when you don't use like rules to guide your life versus when you do use rules to guide your life.
Awesome. Erica.
You've talked about rules and absolute truth and where that is in today's society. How could natural law and a knowledge of natural law or application of natural law affect or make a difference in today's view, in our society's view of absolute truth? That's a packed question, so if you need me to repeat it.
I think that applying natural law in our society today, is that what you're talking about? Like that could have a really good effect of, we don't have to go and make our own rules, like because we can know from like personal revelation from God and looking at what has been time tested to work, what the laws of morality and good living are. And people might like disagree about the specifics, but the generals, like almost every civilization has come to realize and reject at different times, but at some point they always know under the surface that you're not supposed to hurt other people or steal from them. Like the golden rule that you're supposed to do to other people what you would want to be done to yourself. You shouldn't lie.
Alert from your disk is almost full.
That was very fantastic. Go ahead.
And you shouldn't use drugs to get this momentary pleasure that destroys your body. Like these are generals that really everybody should be able to agree upon, but because our wrapped up in postmodernism, a lot of people say that those are just dogmas that we've always accepted without necessarily a good reason, and there are times when it's actually good to infringe on one person's rights for the good of the collective, or to break other laws of morality.
That is definitely. Oh, sorry. Are you still going?
Sorry. I was trailing on.
That's definitely where our society stands. And with that, how would you create a different culture around you, whether that be for yourself or for your family down the road? How will you create a different culture within that society?
I think the best way to do it is, instead of trying to like go and change other people, is to just change yourself first and to be a good example. And I really struggle with that a lot of the time, and a lot of time I think that I always like more want to go after other people's problems and help them fix their own life and get it in order, when sometimes I like have a lot of my own life a big mess, and people don't really want to hear it if you're going to be giving them advice, no matter how good that advice is, if you're not following it and you don't have that legitimacy to back it up. So the number one thing I'd say would be to follow natural law in my own life and be an example of what that can do.
Fantastic. How have you seen yourself change this semester?
I've seen myself change in a lot of ways, some better than others, I guess. I think that I kind of understand more how to make myself do things that I don't really want to do, and then enjoy them in the process. And a lot of times in the past, I've run away from anything where I start to feel trapped in it or forced into it. But what I've been thinking about is, like I was talking about earlier, where you decide on a rule or something that you're going to do and a principle that you're going to follow, and then even in the moment when it doesn't seem like that good of a decision, or like it's taking away your freedom, you know that you just follow it anyway, and then it actually ends up bringing you more freedom.
Yesterday in her oral final, Eliana talked about how in the postmodernist world, there's so many options for people to choose that it becomes very, very confusing, and that truth, or that hard and fast rule, truth narrows the options to just a few. And Erica asked her, how are you going to go about persuading yourself and others that living a more restricted view, because you're wanting this truth, is going to benefit you? And so maybe let's go with that. I'm going to ask you the same thing. In this world where there's so many options, where it's just so easy to choose anything you want to do and it's all accepted, how are you going to convince someone else or help someone, persuade someone else to understand that the truth, or the narrow vision of truth, actually does give you freedom? How are you going to convince somebody else of that? And you have 2 minutes left.
I think what I said earlier is, like, I don't know if a logical argument is ever really going to convince somebody of that and convince them to want to do it. I think that the most effective way is to just be an example yourself, like I said earlier, and follow it yourself, and then they can look at your life and see if you're the kind of person that they want to be, and I guess they can, and then you can have more power in your arguments, and you can know it much better in order to, because you've been there, so you can convince them, I guess.
Awesome. You have about a minute and a half left. Tell how communism, reading the Communist Manifesto, which is an economic book, by the way, it's under the economics section. How has that book influenced you this time as you read it? Because I'm sure you've read it before, but how has it this time influenced you?
I actually hadn't read it before this class. I had wanted to several times before, but I was thinking there's a lot of like good books I can be reading right now, and so I don't necessarily want to study the counterfeit to know what that is. I want to like study the truth.
Alert from
I can.
your disk is almost full.
Will not stop. But, some of the things I learned from it, I guess, were just how much people mischaracterize the book, actually, to try to paint a better picture of it, or to try to paint it worse in some cases. And it's just crazy, all the things that people will tell you about what Karl Marx said without ever actually reading what Karl Marx said. So I think in general, if you want to know what somebody says, you read what they say or listen to what they specifically have to say, not what somebody who heard somebody else says about it, and you hear this rumor. And that applies to anything. And I know as members of the church, we wish that people would do that a lot more often, and instead of saying, oh yeah, Mormons only wear jeans when they're exercising, like go and talk to a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and learn like what we do. So I guess in some ways I found out that he actually advocated horrible things, and in other ways he wasn't as horrible as some people make him out to be. And you can actually challenge those ideas now because you know what they are.
Awesome. Hold on just a second. I want to get this down and then we'll clap. I was thinking of, do you remember years ago we read Emerson? And this is no more questions. I'm just remembering. We read Emerson, and he told us not to be a parrot of other man's thinking. I was thinking of what you were saying, that you found out for yourself what was in the Communist Manifesto, and that's a valuable lesson. Love it. Okay, let's give Jace a big clap, big applause. Awesome. Woohoo! By the way, when your computer said the disk was full, that's kind of how I feel sometimes. It's like, this disk is full. I loved it. Okay, we'll just take some time to write down a few notes. Jace, you looked less nervous than you've ever looked before.
You couldn't see, but I was like wiggling my hands under the camera, moving them back and forward and everywhere the entire time.
Yeah, but that's what's so good about an online oral. You can hide all that. I love it. But you looked great. You've just really grown. I wrote a lot while you were talking, so I think I'm done. I don't know. Do you need any more time, Erica?
No, I'm good.
I want to look at our schedule because I think we might be kind of behind. Let me just see really quickly. Where is it?
Yeah, and 2 minutes ago we should have started with Lincoln.
Okay, Lincoln, 10:20. All right. Lincoln, are you ready?
Yep.
Let me get this little thing ready, and get your paper ready.
Mom, we're doing finals.
Who is that?
Hi, Julie.
Hi, how are you? Is that Lanny?
Yeah, sorry. No, sorry. I don't want to. No, I'm so sorry. I just walked in and interrupted.
Your children are doing awesome.
Thank you. Good.
We're ready for Lincoln right now. All right, Lincoln. Are you nervous?
No. Yeah, kind of.
Oh, thanks for being honest, because I know everybody's nervous when they do this.
Yeah.
We're going to try and ask you the hardest questions, Lincoln.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. I'm kind of nervous too. I always get nervous about this. All right, we're ready, and I will start with, okay, I'm touching this little button. We're on. Lincoln, which was the most difficult book for you this year to just pick up and read, and why?
I thought the Communist, well, there were a couple that were hard. I think the Sublime is Now, that was kind of hard. It was kind of a hard writer, and so that was kind of hard for me. Also, the Communist Manifesto was kind of hard at the end. Some of the things I didn't quite understand, but yeah.
So things you didn't understand, or because of the writing, or what? For the Communist Manifesto?
Yeah, it was more, I guess, just harder writing, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whew. And Sublime is Now is written by an artist, and you should hardly ever read anything written by an artist because their brain is so scatterbrained that it's really, really hard. But I had to give everybody an experience. Okay, so what was the most influential reading that you had this year?
I liked Les Mis. That was a good book. I liked a lot of the principles of just redemption and always doing what you think is right, and yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm just writing something down. So tell us what principles in Les Mis have to do with natural law.
With natural law, which is God's law, I feel like God has justice and mercy in a lot of his how he judges us, and his commandments for us to have mercy to others. And so I think just it has to do pretty much just with how we deal with others, of how if we're merciful, God will be merciful to us, and if we have justice, he'll be merciful. He'll be just. He'll use justice to judge us.
Excellent.
Yeah.
When you look at all of the books that we read this semester, list the books that pretty much the author followed natural law.
Emma did, I feel like, kind of, that was more of a novel, but I
No,
think
that's okay.
I think it still did. It showed the consequences of not following it. Les Mis, I think, followed natural law too. Frankenstein, probably just showing consequences of not following it again.
Good.
And yeah.
Anything else?
I think that's, I guess, the Hiding Place too, and Anne Frank. Most of those did.
How did Anne Frank follow natural law?
Well, yeah, in the end, she talks about how she starts to kind of find who she is more. And I feel like that's important to natural law, to be able to find out who you are. And, yeah.
I love that. Okay, good. So if you look at the other side of the equation, which is postmodernism, which is, we've ousted God out. So since we don't have God, we don't have any natural law anymore. Yay! So what books do you feel followed postmodernism?
Candide, I think it did. There was a lot of chaos in that, and Voltaire kind of made fun of God and religion, and so I feel like that followed postmodernism. The Communist Manifesto also followed it, because he talks about breaking away from religion and God and family, and a lot of those good things that we have. I feel like those are the main two that really hit me as following that.
Awesome. Very good. We're going to continue on this next semester, and we'll continue trying to figure out which ones go with which, and finding and gleaning from them both. So why is it that we try to study these books that contradict natural law? What's the purpose?
Sorry, it broke.
Cut
I
out.
couldn't hear you.
Okay. What is the purpose that we study books that are that contradict natural law? Why is it that we study them?
Well, when we read those books, we have to either agree or disagree with them. And so if we disagree with them, then we'll have to find a way to argue against it, and so it will strengthen our argument against it. And they'll just help us be able to argue against things that don't follow with it.
Awesome. Okay. Do you feel you have been your faith has been strengthened because we've read them, and why?
Yeah, I think it has. I feel
I should say why or why not, so that I can give you sorry.
Yeah. No, I think it has, and I feel like, just like I was talking about before, just how we can argue against things that are really influential and that have a lot of power, and argue against them if they don't have the natural law and things like that. So I guess it has strengthened my faith that that's the gospel and natural law and all those things are true and good, just because I can argue against postmodernism and some of their principles, I guess.
Awesome. Erica, do you have a question right now ready for him?
Yeah. how can we attain knowledge through this variety of opinions while still maintaining our own? Or our own opinion, I should say.
Yeah. I feel like with the Communist Manifesto, when you read that, I learned a lot about like factories, how I guess sometimes how it's hard. Well, just give me a minute to think.
Sure.
Okay, yeah. So I guess I feel like it's you can learn about other things that don't really have to do with as much with the principles, I guess, if that makes sense. More like other things that people talk about in the like in Candide. I thought about how sorry, just let me think for a minute.
Sure.
You're going above and beyond because you're thinking of a specific example for you, and so I'm really excited to hear this. This is great. Take your time.
Okay, yeah. I guess going back to the Communist Manifesto. So I guess we learn about like factories and how wealthy people can take advantage of more of poor people, and and also I learned about with that how it's only when people begin to have an enemy that they will unite, and I feel like once the poor people start seeing how the rich people are taking advantage of them, kind of using them, they start to unite and fight against them. And I think that we can learn from that, even if we still disagree with a lot of the authors in the authors.
Yeah, it does. But what is the principle that you learn from it? Let's focus on that. Well, so when poor people have an enemy, when people have an enemy, they unite, and you said we learn a lesson from that. But I want to ask you, what is the lesson that you learn? What is the principle? And you can take a minute. What is that principle?
It's just, yeah. I think it's kind of with opposition in all things, how it's only once you have an opposite that you see that you will disagree with, if that makes sense. So kind of opposition in all things.
Yeah, and how important is it to have that opposition in all things? What's the purpose of it?
To be able to overcome the opposition and become strengthened.
Okay, good. You have 4 minutes left. Erica, did you have another question, or should I go on?
I did.
Okay.
Along with growing opinions of our own and a variety of opinions of others, I noticed this seems to be a strong point for you in conversation or debate, that you are able to see another perspective and argue for that perspective, even if you may not completely agree with it. How do you think that could help you or anyone in society to understand each other? That ability to see a different perspective.
I think with relationships, a lot of times it's hard to form a relationship if you can't understand each other, and even if you disagree with it, as long as you can understand them, you can start to be like their friend and form a relationship with them. So I feel like a lot of times it can just help have friendships, I guess, kind of. Yeah.
Excellent.
Definitely.
All right. Tell me what you thought of Bastier's book, What is Seen and What is Unseen, and how has it, what is the context of the book, and how do you think it's influenced you and society? What is the context and how has it influenced you?
I guess I'll start with the second one, kind of. Well, okay, the context is more of the wait, like when, how is it, what do you mean, like what,
The context is
like,
basically the thesis, what it's trying to say. Mm-hmm.
okay, yeah, I guess the context is just there are things which are seen and not seen, and the things which are seen. Well, I guess in the beginning it talks about how good economists, they can see that which is seen in both sides of that which is seen and that which is not seen, and that bad economists can only see that which is seen, or the easier part to understand.
Good.
Yes, yeah.
And how has it influenced you, and do you think the society?
It's influenced me because when I make a decision in my life, I usually try to make sure that it's a good decision, and I feel like there are a lot of times there are the good decisions, and then there are the better decisions, and then the best. And I feel like a lot of times that what you're seeing, it may be good and it may help something, but it's not quite as good as the better or best.
Excellent. Kind of reminds me of that talk by Dallin H. Oaks. It's called Good, Better, and Best. Have you ever read that?
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
Good. How do you think this book has influenced society, or has it?
I think just with, I like the broken window idea that if you break a window, you're just going to lose the window because they will spend money on another thing instead of the window. And I feel like that has changed society, because I think a lot of people thought that it was through destruction that we could, I guess, make the economy richer, and that's not what really is. And so I feel like that's kind of what has changed society.
Excellent. Good. Oh, 2 seconds left, so we won't go with another question. Fabulous. Very good. We'll give Lincoln a big hand. There went the timer. Good job. Is there something you wished we would have talked about? Just curious.
No, not really. That was good. Yeah.
It's good.
Thanks.
Okay. I'm always curious about that. Okay, let me just write a few things and then we will be ready for Lucy Robbins. So you can turn on your camera, Lucy, and get ready.
And really quick, Lincoln, we covered a lot of material in your oral because you answered so succinctly, and that is a great skill to have. So great work on that.
Awesome. And you were good at taking a moment. Okay. I am ready for Lucy Robbins. Lucy, you're ready too. And are you as nervous as I am? You can go ahead and turn on your mic. Are you on? You're kind of frozen.
Oh, am I? Can
Oh,
you hear
there.
me?
Yep, I can hear you just fine. You look beautiful in your floral dress. And I asked, are you as nervous as I am?
I don't know. I don't think I've ever been this nervous before, though. So.
Oh, just know that I was nervous too. You missed our prayer, but Lucy, the other Lucy, gave a wonderful prayer, and the Lord's with us. And you know what? This is one of those things that we think are awful, awful. And I wonder why. Sometimes I wonder, why do we think they're awful, awful? And the conclusion I've come up with is because we are afraid of failure. We are afraid we won't be able to think. And yet the whole oral is all about getting comfortable with silence. Lincoln's walking away, but he had an experience, and so did Lucy, where they drew a blank. And I told them that it's, before we even started these, I told them that it's okay to draw a blank. You just need to accept that you're drawing a blank and just say, I'm drawing a blank right now. But what was so amazing with Lucy Whitney, were you there when she said, did you listen to Lucy Whitney's by any chance? Lucy Robbins? Are you there? You're frozen again.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, there you are.
Okay.
So did you listen to Lucy Whitney's?
Yeah.
Okay, so you saw that when she said, I'm drawing a blank, and then within seconds, she was able to remember what she needed to say. As soon as we admit that we're drawing a blank, it just, for some reason, helps our brain. And if it doesn't right away, then it's okay. We can defer and we can go to another thing that we do know about. And it's okay to have silence. So that's why it's so funny that we're afraid that we're going to have to do those things. And yet that's what we're being graded on, is to the ability to face those things. So I'm just repeating that so that Mia can hear it, because we talked a little bit about this before we started with the Whitneys and with Jace this morning. So Lucy, we're supposed to start with you in about 7 minutes, but it's okay if we just go now. And then Mia, is it okay if we go right after Lucy? We'll be a little earlier than you were planning. Okay, that sounds good. All righty. I'm going to get my timer going. Okay, let's see. This time, Erica, would you like to start to break the ice?
I'd love to.
Okay, I'm starting right now.
Okay. Lucy, I love reading all your opinions and thoughts on everything that you've read. Oh, I felt like I could never say enough quite back. I wanted to just sit and talk with you about it. And I'd love to know what one of the readings were to you that impacted you most this past semester.
I think The Sublime Is Now was the hardest thing that I ever did, that I read this year. But I liked it the most because it talks about how we can use like happiness and beauty, but I'm thinking about happiness with perfection. And so I talked about it in my epiphany. But so Satan knows that we are not capable of perfection, and I think that's terrible because that's telling us that we are not capable of happiness. And Heavenly Father gave us the great point of happiness, and so we need to remember that only through Him can we achieve that.
I love that so much. So, how would you help someone reach that happiness who doesn't have a belief in God?
I think that is really hard because God is the one who gives joy. But even if they don't believe in God, they do believe in goodness, which God is goodness, so it's kind of the same thing. But I think that everyone says that like happiness is gained when you give others happiness, and I believe in that strongly. So I would tell them that the only people who are happy are the ones who share their happiness with others.
That's great. You're right. I think it would be a challenge, but that would be a great way to go about it. How would you compare Corrie ten Boom and Anne Frank in their stories and how they dealt with what came their way?
I feel like in the end, they both came to the same conclusion, that really they were the only ones that could determine how they felt about life and stuff. But they were very different because I think that Corrie ten Boom had more of a foundation. And so she was firm, and she was able to overcome her trials more easily because of that faith. And it was harder for Anne Frank because she did not have that strength of Christ. But yeah.
That's great. How do you think we could emulate what Corrie ten Boom had? And what is it that Corrie ten Boom had that was different?
I think that Corrie ten Boom had the light of Christ in her. She was relatable, and that's what I liked about her. But she was also a very within her, and so I think that it was because of her faith and her devotion to God that she could just be that way.
That's great. They are different in age, and so it's hard to compare them right next to each other. Learning from experience, as Corrie ten Boom did as well. That's great. Thanks.
Awesome. It says my internet is unstable, but can you hear me? Give me a thumbs up if you can.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, good. I want to go with Emma. We haven't talked a lot about Emma, even though it was one of our bigger books, and we've had some good discussions on her. We learned about true friendship and how it develops, but we also learned about manipulation and how when I first, and this is the first time I read Emma, but I watched the movie a lot of times. The movie is obvious that she is manipulating her friend, but in the book, it's not so obvious. And I'm going to ask, how do we recognize when someone is manipulating someone else, either us or someone else? How do we what do we do to recognize that?
I think that the key part of it is that Emma was like, I don't know, she was like trying to convince her to do things. She was giving her like all the reasons why, I forget his name, but the one, was he like a pastor, I think?
Yes, is it Elton? I can't remember the name.
John Elton.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, she was like giving all the reasons why he would be, and like and then she was trying to convince her not to like do what she was naturally inclined to do in marrying the I forget his name too, the man with the sisters, but I don't remember. The poor man, and I think she was basing a lot of her this she was basing people's worth on their wealth, and so her head was obviously in the wrong place. So if she was not in the right, then she could not help others to be in the right too.
So are you saying that you can look at someone and you can say, where are they basing their values, and come to grips with whether they're manipulating someone or not? You can look at where they're basing their values. Good. So how are you going to protect yourself against manipulating others? What are you going to do?
I think that well, I am definitely a perfectionist myself, but I have noticed that I am sometimes, lots of times critical of others, but mostly in like my head. And so I tend to find the bad in everything. I'm kind of pessimistic. And so I think that looking for the good in other people will help me, because manipulation is, and kind of, not really, but kind of force them to do otherwise. And so I think that in order to be a good friend, I have to be understanding and see the good.
I love that. Lincoln talked about that too, being understanding. Good. Okay. Let's see. We already talked about the hardest reading, which was Sublime Is Now, and it probably impacted you the most. Out of the next 3 books that I'm going to list, tell me what you learned out of those 3 books. And I'm going to say Candide, Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, and Frankenstein. What might be one thing that you learned that might be common? It says it's unstable. Am I cutting out?
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay. Look for one thing that you can find in common with these 3 books: Candide, Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, and Frankenstein. That's kind of hard to do, but what are some common things? And you can start talking. Lucy said, the other Lucy said babbling, until you can come to a consensus of what common thing or things did you learn from those 3 books: Candide, Frankenstein, and the Rhyme of Ancient Mariner.
Okay. I think that all of them, to me, were showing the effects of positive law and like relativism, and then, but all of them in the end, I think they all the main characters began to realize the effects of those, and they changed, and they understood that God's law is a more liberating law, even if it seems to hold you back from things that you may want to do.
That's awesome. Good. Just a second. Awesome. That's fantastic. Okay, you have 3 minutes left, and let's talk about natural law. Let's talk about God's law. And let's talk about how, and maybe we've talked about it with some others, but what's your perspective on the difference between natural law and postmodernism?
I think that postmodernism is, I think lots of people like the ideas of postmodernism and its philosophy because it's saying that everybody can come up with their own, like, taking away the threat of like failure and mistakes because everything is accepted and everything, it doesn't matter what you believe as long as it's right for you. And so it's very free, I would say, and everyone is free to express themselves. But natural law is, it's kind of hard to understand because natural law has more rules, and it's saying that there is right and wrong, and that there is God and there is Satan. And so it holds you accountable for what you're doing. But I think that it's, I think that it goes back to the difference between liberty and freedom, because liberty, I think, is more liberty is, I guess in this situation, it would be when you choose to do good. And so you're free because of that. And freedom is just, doesn't matter what you do, but you're always going to be fine. So, yeah.
Wow, that's fantastic. I like this idea of liberty and freedom. How do you convince someone else that's about your age about liberty and freedom? How would you talk to them about it? Some of your age. What's good about it and what's not? Or what's, how would you teach them? Oh, do you want to finish answering that? Or do you want to, the buzzer just went off.
I can answer that question.
Okay.
I'll just be really quick. I think that liberty is, I don't know. Liberty is just, it's real freedom, but it's like, righteous freedom, I would say, because it's still holding you accountable for your actions, and there's still laws, so that bad things don't happen. But freedom would just be, there's no law and there's no right or wrong. In a country, let's say, there has to be laws, there has to be liberty, because without order and laws and leadership, then it's just chaotic.
Awesome. Wonderful job. Let's give her a hand. Good job, Lucy. Fantastic. You did so well for your first oral final. Wow. Can you believe it? Was it as bad as you thought?
No, it wasn't.
It's pretty awesome. And Jace just left us, but he's one that told us in class that he said it was really scary at first, but it just makes you feel so good afterwards. And that is how we feel when we testify of any truths. And that if you plan on going on a mission, any of you, it is so invigorating, because there you are convincing the world of the greatest truth, which is Jesus Christ. And it is so invigorating, and all the truths that surround him, because they're natural law, all of those truths are invigorating to talk about. And that's what an oral final gives us the ability to do. And of course in class too, when you be bold and you're able to say something you want to say, when you're testifying of truth or you're asking about truth, you are going to feel invigorated. And that's why I say, hey, Mia, Lucy, Isabella, you three, you're a little quiet, but man, you could have this experience in class. Step up to the plate. It's so fun. All right, I'm going to take a few minutes. Thank you, Lucy Robbins. And Mia, is that okay if we do yours just a little bit earlier than we were planning? A little bit earlier? Good. Who is after you, Mia? Eli, and he's not here yet. So Eli and Elizabeth. Oh, Eli's the last one before I take a lunch break. And Isabella, you're here early. It's so fun to have you here. If you wanted to have yours earlier, that would be fine too. So think about that. But we'll go with Mia, and then hopefully Eli will be here. I'm going to take a few minutes, although I wrote down quite a bit. Okay. Oh, that's nice of what Jay said about all of you. Both Lucy's did really well, and I learned a lot from them. I love that. I love learning from orals. I have got to stand up, Mia, for just a second and drink some water. Whew, I'm tired of sitting. I'm just going to stretch my legs. I'm on one of these chairs that are the ergonomics, where you sit on your bum and then you kneel down on another little padding or something. So that's what I'm doing. Hi, Natalie. I'm so glad you're joining us to watch these. Okay, I'm going to stretch. Ooh, and then we'll be ready for you, Mia. Oh, my poor knees. Sadly, I fell down the stairs yesterday, and I didn't think it hurt me, but today my knee is kind of sad, and I've got a bruise on my rear end. Is that TMI? Okay. All right, that felt better. Okay, Mia. Erica, I so appreciate you. Doesn't she have some of the best questions? And Erica, you are more succinct and concise than I am. You've done really well in your life. You're going to be way ahead of me. That's okay. Because isn't that the way it's supposed to be? Children are supposed to be more ahead of their parents, and your child will be more ahead of you. That's just the way it is. Okay, I'm ready to start this. Mia, why did you take this class? Can I start out with that?
Yeah. I think I took this class not only just to, I think it's good to be able to read classical books, because I'm not the type of person who will normally just pick a classical book for pleasure to read, but I think it's good because you're able to get more perspective as into like our literature and language, because you're able to understand how people worked and thought and taught over like 100 years ago. And it's also helped me because I'm able to have a new way of thinking and a new way of being able to understand what I'm reading.
Sounds like you've thought a lot about this. You were ready to talk about that. That was awesome. What's so neat though is that this year is all the modern books, and they're not as fun as the real classical books. Although these are classics that we're reading, definitely. But as we get into the Greeks and the Romans and the medieval and the Renaissance, it's so exciting because they're a little bit more focused on God.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So, and Erica, if you want to get ready after I ask this next set of questions, I'm going to ask a personal question. You have been ahead of every student in class. You probably didn't know that, but you've been ahead of every student in class. What has motivated you to, I mean, you've started reading Churchill.
Yeah.
And what has motivated you to do that?
For me, I'm a very organized person. Everything has to be organized, and like if I ever get behind, I'm just a complete mess. It's super stressful to me. And so, and I always feel better when I'm ahead or if I'm on time for something, because it gives me extra space to be able to work on things that I need help with and be able to like what was a hard, like for the Sublime is Now, that was a harder book for me to read. And since I was ahead, it gave me more time to like look up some of my questions and think about how it applies to me. Yeah.
Awesome. I like that. It has kept me on my toes, and I have not yet started reading Alice in Wonderland, but I've got to do it because Mia is going to start reading it in less than a week. So I'm finally starting to get on top of things, and I appreciate that. Thank you for explaining. Okay, let me ask you maybe a character question. What will happen someday? You might find yourself in a situation where you aren't on top of things. How are you going to deal with that?
I think
Yeah, go ahead. And I'm going to just plug in my computer because it's going to start screaming at me.
I'll have to find the time to be able to cover my things, because if I'm behind, it's only, and I'm choosing not to do the work because it's so stressful, I'm just going to get even more behind, and then I'll be even more stressed. And so I need to be able to, and also willing to put the effort in now. So then it's kind of like in that which is seen, that which is not seen. I have to be able to put forth effort now, so then the long-term consequences will be better.
Love that. Thank you. Go ahead, Erica.
What do you think is the role of asking questions in reading? Or how have you noticed that this semester as you've read?
I think we need to ask questions for almost everything, because everyone has a different opinion about different subjects. And when we're only relying on one person's opinion on something, we're not always getting the most or the best information that we can get. So that's why I think we need to be able to ask why or how, and also getting other people's insights and opinions on the same subject.
That's awesome. As you asked questions, because you mentioned being on task helped you have more time to ask questions as you read. As you asked questions this semester, how did you see that make a difference for your learning personally?
Um, well, normally, like when I would read a book before I start this class, I wouldn't be super, what's the word? I wouldn't be super, like, I wouldn't be as into asking questions as I have now, because most of the time I would just skim over a book to get it done and not really go into reading it as much as I have. And so I think that when I have started asking questions, it's helped me to really understand what I'm reading and be able to also help me want to learn more about what I'm reading.
That's awesome. I think that provides you an opportunity to reflect and review where you're at so you can progress more.
Yeah.
That's
Awesome.
great.
Mia, we live in a country that is a democracy. It actually was set up as a republic, but in the sense of letting, well, I'm not going to say that because it's the answer to the question. What is a democracy in your opinion?
In my opinion, I think a democracy is when people are like working together, kind of like a government where we're working together for the greater good and we're looking out like for our country and for our society and we're trying to think of what's best for them.
I heard words like working together, looking out for, and the people are doing this. I love that. And so in orals, by the way, we learn things, okay? So democracy comes from the word demos in Greek, which means people, and krasi, which is comes from a Greek word that I can't remember right now, but it means government. So it's the government of the people, okay? So the people rule. So krasi, I guess, is rule. And so the people rule. And so the people are looking out for each other. So when de Tocqueville traveled here from broken France, and I'm saying broken France because they let Voltaire and Rousseau kind of change their philosophy. He came over to see what we were doing in our country, and it was so fascinating for him for that year that he wrote Democracy in America. What was his purpose? I'm probably cutting out. Am I cutting out?
No, I heard what you said.
Okay. What was his purpose for writing this book, Democracy in America?
Well, like you said, he went to America to bring and to learn about democracy so he could bring it to France. And I think the purpose is because before I read it, I had no idea really what democracy was and like how our government really works. And so I think he wrote it because he wanted us to get a further definition of the meaning of democracy, and he also wanted us to learn, because I think it's really cool that he traveled all the way across the world just to find out something and then bring it back. For me, it's a very a great example because he wanted to know something so much that he was willing to actually travel across the country to learn it. And so I think it shows just how much we should be willing to work for something if we really want to learn it.
I love that. Good. Okay. So, and then he discovered that there were two principles, two ideas that make up a democracy. Do you remember what those ideas, or what did I say, qualities, characteristics? What are the two characteristics of a democracy? And
Characteristics of a democracy are sovereignty, that a man should be able to control and have his own government, and equality, where all men are created equal and everyone is equal in God's eye, and we should all be equal in man's eye too.
I love that. Are there any dangers with equality, and what might those be? Or maybe there aren't. Maybe there aren't any. What do you think?
I think I wouldn't really say dangers, but there's definitely problems because people see equality differently. Someone might say, like, if you take a little kid, for example, a little kid always wants something to be fair and equal. If their sibling gets this, then they want the same thing. But equality isn't always everyone gets the exact same thing. God gives us, He doesn't give every single person the exact same amount of everything. He gives everyone what they need. So one person might need something like not as much as another person would need it. And so I think equality is just everyone deserves what they need.
Okay. If we go to the Declaration of Independence, there are 3 things that are given to us by God that makes us all equal. What are those 3 things? Thomas Jefferson wrote it, and he came up with, that we are entitled to.
Isn't it life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness?
Yes. And those are the 3 things that make us all equal.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else besides that is just an outcome of our choices, right?
Yeah.
So when we see that equality is only in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and we see this man de Tocqueville is coming over, he's seeing this, and he's saying, okay, these people are all equal in their life, that their lives are protected, their liberty is protected because they are reading the classics and they believe in God, and they are able to pursue, think of Bastia and Wealth of Nations, they are able to pursue their living in life. And if you look at that,
Mm-hmm.
and then you go over across the way to Prussia, where Karl Marx is writing, look at this, we don't have equality, we have all these rich people and we need to get rid of them. How would you fix the problem that Karl Marx is saying that we all need to be equal? What is it that he's saying that we need to be equal in? Gosh, I've taken a long time. Keep going.
So he wants everything to be fair and everyone to have the same amount because he believes that equality is that everyone has the same amount of everything. And he isn't going by God's plan that everyone should have what they need. And so I think, well, in my opinion, I think communism is a horrible idea because hardly anyone is getting what they need. A doctor could be making the same amount of someone who works at a gas station. And that's not fair for what the person is working for and for what they need.
Mm-hmm. So cool. Let's give her a hand. I kind of want to finish with something, though. It's interesting that Karl Marx is taking away life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness to make them equal.
Yeah.
Is that so amazing?
Mm-hmm.
And yet, in our country, we've been given life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And there's a lot of different classes in our country. There's a lot more now because our government is kind of taking away our pursuit of happiness in some ways, putting a lot of restrictions. But hey, that was so fantastic, Mia. Thank you so much. We'll give her one more hand because I kind of interrupted the. And so glad you're here with us, Isabella and Natalie. And we don't have Eli. We don't have Eli. We'll take the minute to write down some things that we don't want to forget about Mia. And then thinking we've got Eli supposed to be here next at 11:30. So that's in 10 minutes. So he's okay. Isabella, what do you think if we went with you in just a few minutes? Or would you like to stay? Would you like to come back and do it at the time that you said?
My time is I don't remember what time I put myself for.
Oh, you put yourself for 1:10 my time, which is about 10 minutes ago for you. Right? So we'll just, since you were planning on coming, we'll do you right after I finish writing a few notes for Mia. We'll take you. I had you down as Mountain Standard Time, which this works. I'm so glad. Then Erica and I will be done a little earlier today. Let me just quickly text Beth and see if she can come, if Ina can come a little earlier. Okay. All right, let me just write a few things. Wow, you did so well, Mia. Okay. All right, we're ready for Izzy. Isabel, you look so pretty. It's a pretty floral, is it a floral dress? It's pretty. And you got a hair. Did you get a haircut?
I did.
Wow, I like it.
I got I was in Costa Rica for a week.
You went to Costa Rica?
To see my dad's side of the family. My aunt just had a baby.
Oh, fun. So our family was thinking about flying there because we've got some miles, and we're just wondering what fun things there are to do there. What did you do?
Well, we were there for a week, and it was mostly for the baby.
Okay.
So, baby was very fun, but the last few times I've been there, I think some of the places you'd want to go. Well, okay. There's a place called Fossil Island, and it's an experience you probably only want to have once.
Okay.
If you're like an older person. For like younger kids, like yeah, for sure they probably want to go again. But it's it's an experience. You pretty much go through like this tour thing. You go inside a cave, which is kind of cool. They give you like all these facts about it and like how it like came to be. And but there's also this kind of, I guess I want to call it a mascot or something. That he goes around and like shoots you with water from a water gun, and I didn't know this, so I was wearing like nice clothing, and then they made us roll around in mud because
Oh, wow.
games.
And then, but at the end, you got to go on this zip line. Like it was like this really nice
Oh,
long zip line with like a
fun.
nice view thing. So that was fun. But yeah, it's definitely
That's
it's
fun. We'll have to look it up. That's so fun.
Fossil Island.
All right, we'll look it up. Okay, Isabella, we've got you. I've got your paper ready. I'm going to look at my timer and see if it's all ready to go soon. Erica, how would you like to start this one out? Or you didn't start the one with Mia out, did you? No, I did. So if you could start this one and we'll go right. Oh, and are you standing up, Isabella? So with an oral, we get to stand up. Yep. And it just kind of makes us think a little differently. And oh, we've got Eli here too. So Eli, I think we'll go with you. We're starting Isabella's right now, and then we'll go with yours right after that. Okay, go ahead. Starting.
Okay. First off, what was a reading that you really enjoyed that resonated with you this semester?
A reading the reading that probably most resonated with me would have to be Les Mis.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just because I know it's a very like famous book, and like I haven't actually read it. I've seen the movie, I've seen the musical and whatever. But I thought it was very interesting to see how the book and like everything just like compare and like contrast, and I thought it was really interesting getting to see the I guess inside perspective of the character per se, I guess. Like Jean Valjean, you get to see his past and what happened to lead to like all these events. And I think I liked the narrator's choice of words when referring to well, I don't remember his name after it was like Monsieur something or he like when he turned into like a wealthy man, a narrator used references to past experiences that Jean Valjean had, like when Bishop Miriam told him, just be an honest man, and I wish I could. I wish I remembered the name they called him, but
don't worry about it if you don't remember names. An oral is all about talking about principles and things that influence you. Names don't worry about them.
Okay. Oh, it's frozen. Oh, there we go. Okay. He froze for a little second.
Oh, sorry. Did you hear what I said, that not to worry about names?
Yeah, I heard that.
Perfect.
So I kind of like the narrator's choice of words when referring back to that, because after Jean Valjean became a wealthy man, he became this more giving man, and his only rule was be an honest man or be an honest woman. And I think that was really clever of the author to do that without directly revealing the name Jean Valjean. And I don't know, I just really liked all the characters.
That is really neat. It's true, you get a lot of background in the book. Knowing that story and being able to read it in such depth, how does that help you being able to grow above and beyond your circumstances, like Jean Valjean had to do?
Isabella, are you there? She's kind of frozen. Oh, darn it. We have those problems. It's the internet.
If you want to just pause the timer, we can get back.
There she is.
There we go. I was gonna see
Okay.
if my Wi-Fi was acting. My connection was lost. I don't know how that happened.
So did you hear the question that Erica had?
No.
Okay.
No problem. Being able to read that story in such depth, what did you learn about growing beyond your circumstances as Jean Valjean had to do?
I learned that your past does not define you. It doesn't define your future. And I especially resonated that with Jean Valjean because he had spent 14 long years in prison for stealing one a few times. That was his fault. But but I think, and also that goes for other characters too, I believe. I think Cosette, she was a victim of, child abuse. She was pretty much a slave to the Thénardiers, and she grew up to be this nice woman who Jean Valjean took in, and Jean Valjean saw her as kind of a sister or a daughter. And I just think that, yeah, your past really doesn't define you or your future, and you can be whoever you would like to be, and you can be a better person. As, no matter what your past says, no matter what anyone says. And I just think that's a really nice concept I can take away from the book.
Oh.
What actions or perspective does someone have to adopt in order to rise above their circumstances?
Can you repeat it again? I'm sorry.
Sure, no worries. What actions or perhaps perspectives does a person need to apply to their lives in order to rise above their circumstances? How do we go or not let our past define us?
I think it's a matter of, sorry, I need to articulate my thoughts. A lot of the times, people hold on to their past experiences sometimes it can weigh them down a lot, and for them it feels like they can't move forward. But you really just kind of need the mindset to understand that past experience is toxic to your own being, and it's preventing you from moving on. And so you really need to have the mindset of letting go of those past experiences. And you really just, and this can come from experiences like Jean Valjean had with the bishop. He was going to steal his silver and all those things. And when the police caught him, the bishop let him go and even gave him the candles. And so it can be an experience like that changes you, or it can really be anything. It can pretty much be anything, but it has to be an experience.
Excellent. Isabella, I'm going to put you on the spot. The clock ran out on your final, when you were to answer about postmodernism. And I want to discuss it a little bit about what do you know of postmodernism?
I know that it's, what's the word? It's an ideology that that's pretty much, that gives the right to have others believe what they want to believe, instead of what I say is my truth, but your truth is your truth, and there's not one whole concept that is one full true truth. and it's definitely a lot more common in our world.
It is.
Yeah, so like marriage,
You're frozen. We're going to lose her again.
gender, all those things, truth, and yeah, that's kind of. It said my internet connection went unstable. I'm sorry.
I should have been quiet because now I can hear you. I heard all of it. Just came in.
Oh.
Good. Okay, so you know what postmodernism is. I'm going to go into your test and I'm going to put that in. Let me ask maybe another question so that we can, give you the full score for there. What is relativity as pertains to philosophy? Yeah. Like it's relative.
Right.
Not that you and I are relative, but.
Dang it, I remember reading it.
Are you drawing a blank? By the way, you weren't here when we were talking about if it's okay. It's okay to draw a blank, and it's okay to say, yes, I'm drawing a blank.
Or you can say, I don't know that, but what I do know is, or what comes to mind is.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. So I guess what comes to mind when we relativity as pertaining to philosophy are things that I guess, I mean, it's in the word, that relate to postmodernism and that sort of ideology and philosophy, because like even with I'm sorry, I'm saying a lot. That's a nervous tick.
No, you're fine.
And so even with Voltaire, when he came back and he changed like the philosophies of like of the French and whatever with his books, and he was kind of questioning, is God worth it? Is religion worth it? And I guess relativity, are those types of things that relate to those sort of questions and those sort of other philosophies. I don't know if I'm right.
Good. I think you're close. Relativity just means this is my truth. It's relative to me. That's your truth. It's relative to you. So it's pretty much almost the same thing as postmodernism. So how would you, if you were going to choose a book or two from this readings, from the list that we had, which ones would you say kind of dipped into postmodernism and relativity?
Postmodernism and relativity. Sorry, you cut off a little bit. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I said, which books would you say dipped into the postmodernism or relativity?
Candide for sure.
Okay.
And another book, probably. Can I have a little minute to think?
You bet. That's exactly what you're supposed to do.
I think Frankenstein a little bit.
Okay. Think about those two and come up with maybe an idea of how they dipped into postmodernism.
So with Candide, I think that one's the most obvious one because there's so many ideologies going on in that book. With Pangloss's teachings to Candide, Candide takes those philosophies to heart, and he tries, as he goes through this little adventure of his, he tries to see those philosophies and everything that happens. Pangloss teaches that this world is the best of all worlds, or something like that. It's something along those lines. And it's, and then, you know, not Pangloss, Candide meets Martin, with who has this pessimistic outlook on life, and you know, Candide listens to these ideologies of Martin, and he tries to not argue, but I guess, what's the word, compare their two outlooks, because Candide is such an optimist and Martin is a pessimist. And so Candide, you know, take the sinking of the Van something ship. I can't pronounce it. I think you know what I'm talking about. The boat that starts with a V. During the sinking of that ship, Candide, he sees, oh, you know, this is God's punishment because, you know, they were being wicked. You know, who was it? The sailor, the captain or something? They were being wicked. But then Martin, he brings up the fact that did all of those other passengers on the ship have to suffer with them? And so that's, I think, one of the ways you can see postmodernism in Candide. As for Frankenstein, I'm going to try to be fast. He tries to play God. He wants to play God, and he creates an inanimate object for life. And you know, if Victor Frankenstein had the absolute truth, I want to say, I don't think he would do that. But then again, you know, he really just wanted to create something. And of course, it's not wrong to create, but it's wrong to create over the boundaries of the law of nature. That's one of the ways you could look at it.
Awesome. Hold on. Love what you said. Fantastic, Isabella. Whoops, I forgot to spell that. Let's give her a hand, everybody. And Eli, you can come on your camera. That was fantastic. Thanks, Eli, for having patience. I just need a couple of minutes to finish. Okay. By the way, Isabella, you weren't here when and I'm going to say this so that Eli can hear too. You weren't here this morning when we went over the logistics of oral finals. And that is, most people are fearful because they're going to fail, or they're going to have a nervous tick, like you said, or they're going to have, you know, they're going to have the silence, and yet in a final, we are actually, looks like it's cutting out. In an oral final, we are actually looking for those experiences so that you can see or learn how to deal with them, because that is natural life. To say something, that to go roundabout and say something until you get right into the center and focused, we do that. That's part of life. We also learn to defer a question to another thing, because maybe we don't understand what they're asking, so we're deferring to something that we do understand. Those are things that we want to see in an oral, because they give us strength to know how to deal with other people, or when we are with a crowd of people and we're speaking to them, we want to be able to be comfortable. So you were fine, and you were fine to forget the name of somebody too, because really what we really want are the principles. Remember how important principles are. So it doesn't matter if we forget the names of somebody or something. Fantastic. Let me just remember something here. Okay. All right, Isabella, thank you. Awesome. And Eli. By the way, Isabella, if I forget to go in on your exam to give you those full points for postmodernism, text me. I'm going to write myself a note. Because you understood that really well. Okay, Eli, you ready? You nervous?
A little bit.
So am I. I was telling everybody this morning I get so nervous about this. Oh, hold on. Charity Johns is texting me. Let me just quickly, because Isabella is supposed to be on right now, I think. I have to look at the list really quickly. Sorry, Eli. I hope you're not in a big hurry.
No, you're fine. Not at all.
Okay.
While you're on, Eli, you seem a little fuzzy on your audio. Will you try that again?
Does it sound any better now?
I can kind of hear your voice, but it's robotic and staticky. I couldn't quite make out what you were saying. Is that for everyone else or just me?
It's for me too.
Okay.
Okay.
How about now?
It's the same.
Dang.
Yeah.
So do you have a phone you could get on? Maybe we could connect, because it's really kind of a funny. Now talk without those earphones, headphones. Now talk.
Okay.
Much
That
better. Yep.
Perfect.
These things for some reason don't work really well, and I don't know why. Is that what you were using?
Yeah, they worked in the past, but I'm not sure.
I remember teaching a class one day. I don't know if you were there, but it was not working. I pulled them out and everybody could hear me very much better. So you're fine. We'll be able to do this now. Okay, I will start off. And Erica, if you can be ready for some questions after this first group. Okay, let me get your name on this paper. Okay, I'm starting. All right, Eli, why are you taking this class?
Well, I guess the main reason I'm taking this class, I kind of, I don't know. I've always loved to, read first off, and then when I looked at the book list at the beginning of the year, I read across some familiar books that I knew about. I haven't read, but they intrigued me a ton. I had heard a lot about them, but never read them, and I wanted to not only read them, but to dive further into them and find out what they're really about. And yeah.
Awesome. So you saw the list, it kind of motivated you, wanted to read them, and you wanted to go deeper. Good. Have you been happy with reading the books? How have they influenced you?
I love them a lot. Like, I guess Les Mis and The Mariner really are the two that I really liked. The Mariner because, well, honestly, because it was short and easy, but it was also the way it was written in that kind of poem form. Just kind of, it was fun to read, and you could read it multiple times, and so you could just go through it and really get something different out of it every time. But yeah.
Awesome. Good. Okay. Let me go one more question. Erica, I was going to call you Edie. So the question that I asked in the exam was, why does the mariner feel compelled to tell others about his tale? What is the principle of telling others about our tale or his tale? What is the principle there? If you know what I mean.
Sorta. I mean, when you say that, the principle, it kind of applies to me as he went through this long trial. He learned a lot, and it was really tough for him. And so, like, him wanting to share it is kind of his way of educating others so that they don't have to learn the hard way, that they can learn from his mistakes. Yeah, that he can just teach others and give them the experience that he's had.
That's excellent. You hit it. I'm not saying that exactly is the principle, because many others can find a different principle, but that is exactly a principle that comes out of why we share our stories with other people. We want to help them so they don't have to go through the same problem, right? Cool. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question about what is seen and not seen. What were his views on machines replacing some people's jobs? Because he talked about how, what is seen and not seen in the window analogy. He also talked about people's concerns with machines overtaking some people's work and what is actually not seen about that.
I'm not exactly sure what his specific thing was, but what's just coming to me right now is when machines took over somebody's work, people would see the benefits of it. Because machines can be more efficient, they can do these things, but it also, I'm not sure. I guess there's two things that are coming to me. Two ways it could go. There's the way of it could replace people's jobs and they no longer have work, or there's the way that it could boost the economy. It could work so efficiently that it boosts the economy and makes the economy in turn providing more jobs and providing more things for the people who the machines have replaced. And then I guess a third, you're good. I guess also there has to be someone to make the machines.
That's a good point. He also brought that up. He said there are people repairing the machines, and people now available to do other work, that it's so good for the economy. But in our society, there's also a generation, in the older generation, people are saying, oh, these darn machines, they're creating problems, and in some ways they are. And in other situations, people will say their opinions of what they see. Not in that specific situation, but in general, how could you convince or help other people in society see what is not seen? Whenever they make their complaints about, oh, this country is going down and whatever.
I mean, I kind of see that a lot with the church, because people will come up to you and they'll be like, oh yeah, we see this in the news and we see this. And I mean, the best way I think is just to share with them what you believe and what you principles you know. And it's really up to them whether they accept it or not. But your job is to just provide that information for them.
That's a powerful perspective to know what's in your control, and that's awesome.
Excellent. Good thinking on your feet and deferring. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Let's go with the sublime is now. How did you like that reading?
It's kind of tricky. It's kind of weird. Yeah, I'm not really sure. I mean, I liked a lot of there's some parts that you just read through and you'd be like, oh wow, this is just making no sense to me. And you're going through, and then there'd be that one line that just holds it all together, and you're like, whoa, actually, wow, this is pretty powerful. But yeah, I don't know, it was fun.
Just so you know, almost every artist, and by the way, Winston Churchill, who we're going to read next week, he took up art when he was in his 40s, but almost every artist except for Winston Churchill has a very difficult time making sense of what they are feeling, because they have all these ideas in their mind and they're not organized. And so that's why they express themselves on canvas, because they can pull out all these feelings and emotions and ideas in their mind, and they can put it on canvas. But when they're when they write, it's very difficult. But I wanted everybody to have an experience reading an artist's work. What do you think he was trying to say? What was his thesis? What was Barnett Newman's thesis?
I wrote this down so many times.
That's okay. Just think, and you can gather your thoughts if you want.
I mean, his thesis was kind of like, he talked like to share with the world what true beauty, not what true beauty is, but what true beauty isn't. Because, well, he kind of talked about both, but he did compare them both. In his first paragraph, I think it was, his main kind of thesis, or what I pointed out to be his thesis, was how, I guess he said, like, the European artists ruin art, but his main point, I guess, was that beauty really is what you want it to be. It's kind of, beauty is, I guess an analogy that I compare it to is, beauty is not the painting, but what's inside the painting and what makes up the painting. But yeah, I'm not sure.
Cool. Did you and let me go to sublime, the word sublime. What did he say about sublime, do you think? What is sublime?
The sublime painting, he kind of said, because like the Greeks, they take it as sublime, it's perfect, it is, yeah, it's perfection. There's beauty in perfection, and that is the highest godliness. Like, that's what their take on sublime was. But I guess Newman's take on it was more of like, sublime is I guess it was kind of like almost the postmodernism definition of beauty, because he was like, the sublime is in the moment. It's kind of like what you make of it. The sublime is where you want to go, where you think best thing lies. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was a tough one. He's actually sublime is just means like the highest. You were right, highest, but the highest place. And so sublime really doesn't mean beauty. It means this highest feeling. And so he was saying, rather than use beauty to describe my painting, let's move away from this idea of beauty, and let's just call this a sublime painting, because sublime, this painting is going to take us higher. It's going to lift us, and that's the sublime. And he was saying that the Europeans were in the wrong to try and take these less beautiful paintings and change this idea of beauty, take it down from where it was on the pedestal, and now call this beautiful. And he was saying, why do that? Let's leave beauty way up here, and let's just start a new kind of art and call it the sublime, because that's what people really want anyway. They want to be lifted up, right? So if we look at this idea of Barnett Newman showing that the European artists brought down this idea of what beauty was to match their paintings, how would you see that this influenced postmodernism?
I mean, yeah, when you explain it like that, everything kind of like falls into place. I remember reading, I just like lines popped into my head. Like what you were talking about. I don't know. I just pictured it really well in my brain. But I guess, yeah, he's just saying this is tradition, and let's leave that tradition, and let's move over here and make our own. And it kind of like that kind of moved on to postmodernism in a way that they could just take that and not just apply it to art and paintings, but apply it to everything. As in, like, let's just move away from tradition. People who want that can do that. And we're going to go over here, and we are going to do our own thing and make all of our own morals sublime in their own way.
Awesome. Fantastic. There's just 10 seconds left. So tell us quickly, what was the greatest thing that you learned this semester?
The greatest thing I learned this semester, I guess your education is your own, and it's really what you want to make of it. If you want a great education, you have to put in the time and study for it.
Love it. That is so true. I can stand up here and I can flap my lips, but it's not going to do anything until you want to learn, right? I love that. That's great. Let's give Eli a hand. And some of us are all ready to go to lunch, except for Isabella, who probably already ate lunch a couple hours ago. So
Actually, I didn't. I haven't eaten yet.
Oh, go eat lunch. So I'm going to take a minute and write some things down, and then I'm going to I'll probably leave this up. And thank you so much. And thanks everybody for being here. And we're going to, if anybody wants to come back at about 12:30, Elizabeth, the other Izzy, is going to be here. And she may be alone because I can't get a hold of Enoch. He's coming at 1:40 because I had Isabella Rodriguez near Enoch, but because of the time change, she came early, which is fine with me. I'm so glad you came. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. I'm having the same problem Isabella's having, but I'm going to take a break. I'll go ahead and stop the recording.